And I give the call to the Honourable Jacqui Boydell.
Thank you, Madam President. It's really with great pleasure that I stand and make my valedictory speech in the House today. It's been a massive journey personally and professionally. It's been an amazing experience. We've been able to deliver as the National Party for regional Western Australia, and I played my part in that. I'll always be very grateful to regional people for their support of me. And when I have thought back, as I've been preparing for this speech, on many of the issues that we've been involved in, and so many good times, and sometimes you deal with challenging things, and that's okay. I think we all expect to be challenged in this place. But what I would say is it's an amazing opportunity to be granted. I can only be thankful for it, and I do look forward to moving on to serve in other areas for the people of Western Australia. I was just meeting with Tony Crook prior to question time, and we were having a bit of a laugh about some of the incidents that happened over time, and I'd sort of forgotten this one. But members will remember when I was involved in the campaign for Tony Crook to win the seat of O'Connor. We ran that campaign hard. We were all dedicated to it. We were ecstatic at the win that we had. In the weeks following that, obviously forming government was something that everyone was interested in at that point, and what were we going to do, because we'd really campaigned hard on sitting independently unless we could deliver for regional Western Australia and sit outside the National Party room, which in some areas of the National Party was not popular, as the Honourable Colin Holt alluded to in his valedictory speech. But we campaigned hard, we believed what we were doing. There was much interest in where we were going to sit. Journos were ringing left, right and centre. We had state executive meetings every day, and it was an exciting time. And at the State Secretariat office, we were in the meeting room, and one of our media advisors came in and said, I think I've made a really big error. And we were like, oh my God, what is it? And he said, I think I just hung up on Tony Abbott, who was ringing us to try and understand where Tony Crook was going to sit. And he said, I really knew I'd made a mistake when Peter Credlin then rang me back and said, I think you've made an error. And we really knew we were in the big game then and we were in trouble. He'd hung up on Tony Abbott thinking he was a journo, ringing and suggesting he was Tony Abbott, and said, yeah, righto, mate, and hung up. And then Peter Credlin rang back, and as I said, we then knew we were in trouble. But, that was one of the many moments that you laugh about afterwards, and we were just saying that really is the first chapter of a book, isn't it, of where that sort of went. So those things you can reminisce about and enjoy afterwards, but at the time it was pretty stressful. I wanted to also, first off, really thank the people of the mining and pastoral region, who I've enjoyed their support in majority and numerously over my time as a member for mining and pastoral region. I hope I've served them well. I've certainly given it my all. To my electorate staff, David Gillam and her husband Mick, her children Willie and Matilda, to Catherine Dart and her husband Kieran, their children Georgia, Maddie and Callum, I could simply not have done my job without them. They have been amazing. They have been a great friendship, of great friendship to me. And their whole families have been involved in the ups and downs of my political career and the national parties, and I just wholeheartedly thank them so much. I hope they will not be lost to the people of the mining and pastoral region, and particularly the Pilbara, where my office is in Karratha. They are great community members, and you are lucky, the people of Karratha, to have them. The staff at Parliament House, I mean, gosh, there is just no other work environment where you receive the level of support that Parliament House give members of Parliament. From the committee staff to the staff in this chamber, all across the building. There's too many of them to mention. Many of them are now friends of mine, and I will miss them and that environment. They every endeavour to make sure that members of parliament can do their job. And the people of Western Australia are forever indebted to those staff as well, because they allow us as members to participate in the legislative process in the committee system, which has really fantastic outcomes for the people of Western Australia. I also want to thank the staff in the Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable Mayor Davies' office, who have worked with me for a long period of time, and they also I consider to be great friends, and I will miss the camaraderie and their support and their friendship, but, you know, I'm sure I will continue to see them after we've all done here in the Legislative Council. They have really committed to the National Party and its members, and that hasn't always been easy, and they've really committed themselves personally, and I thank them greatly for it. My friends and family at home and across the globe who I know are watching today, who couldn't be here, their undying support for me and their friendship and their advice has just been amazing, and I'm one very lucky person as a result of that. To my mum and dad who are here, I said I wasn't going to cry. I'll just take a drink. Who've done that journey from Carnarvon again. It's a pure 9 hours from the front gate of the plantation. Who have lived and breathed our journey, and it has meant a great deal to me and to our family. Also to my children, who I also promised I wouldn't cry, but sorry, Jackson. Yeah, just the unbelievable support that they have given me, and on every bit of that journey. None of us as members can do it without our family being committed. To my partner Andrew, also, I just thank you so much for also committing and being with me through that time. I thought it was going to be okay with this, Madam President. Yeah. As I've contemplated my contribution today, I think I've reflected that there are two questions that I get asked the most over my period of time of being a member. How did you ever get involved in politics? And why the hell are you still there? Because it can be really difficult. And I've really thought about that in great detail, Madam President, and I've questioned myself about those particular questions, over my journey as well. And I think I've come to the conclusion that the answer to those two questions is actually the same. And it's the opportunity to be a champion of change. I wanted to be a champion of change for my community where I lived in Carnarvon. I wanted to be a champion of change for industry and business, and a champion of change for Western Australia. To take up that opportunity in this place at the coal face of decision making is just an incredible experience, but you have to use it while you have it, because you are merely the custodian of it while you are here. To be a success at introducing change and taking advantage of the opportunities that present themselves requires a plan, and it requires a vehicle to deliver on that change. And for me, that change was the National Party and Royalties for Regions. I am exceptionally proud of the work we have achieved as a team in the National Party. We started with a focus as a small team, and we fought every day to deliver on that dream, and that we saw come to fruition in the policy of royalties for regions. When you work 24/7 with people, as we did, 6 a.m. phone calls, still speaking to each other at midnight, driving that change because we really believed we were giving regional people an opportunity to be heard in government. You develop really great friendships, and I certainly have done that. Many times within the National Party, we were referred to as the Purple Circle. And I think some people started using that term in probably a derogatory sense. But, Madam President, I was always proud of it. I was proud to be a member of that Purple Circle because it recognised that we were hard at work, that we were involved. We weren't beige, sitting on the sideline. We were bold and we were brave, and we were unapologetic in our fight to represent regional people and deliver royalties for regions. Madam President, I am still unapologetic about that. Am I always going to agree with you? No. And I think members of this chamber who've worked with me, particularly on committees, will know that. But I will listen to your argument. Am I going to be subservient because you think you did me a favour? No. But what I will do is participate in robust discussion and decision-making. I get paid to do that, and so does every member in this House. The people of Western Australia deserve that from me, and they deserve it from every member of Parliament, and they deserve it from the people who are in our political organisations who seek to be in this place. The people of Western Australia also deserve to know that I never took a back step on any issue I deemed that was important on their behalf. One of my final challenges, Madam President, in this place has been the toxic bullying culture that exists in political organisations, and I made the decision to call that out publicly in November last year. I had been calling it out privately and internally for some time. Australian citizens across our nation are asking us, who are all involved in political organisations, to be champions of change in this space. We have to fix that toxic environment and the perception of it. Somehow there's been the idea that this has become the norm in politics. In fact, when I did media after that speech in November last year, Jeff Hutchinson said to me, "But surely this is just the rough and tumble of politics." No, it is not, and it should never be. Through a 24/7 media cycle, through social media, I think there has become a level within political organisations to defend at every opportunity, and we stop to actually take a look in the mirror about what it is we're actually doing, because we don't want to get caught out doing something wrong. And what that has led to, Madam President, is the fact that political organisations are so further from where modern Australia is on this issue that there is a growing gap. And every time there's an issue raised by people involved in politics, particularly women, around bullying and harassment, the modern Australia and corporate Australia and our citizens are aghast. How can that happen in the halls of our parliament? Well, I think we have an insight as members as to how that can happen. Political organisations are made up of volunteers. They are ageing structures. They cannot survive on political donations and deliver on an executive-style, corporate, modern Australia organisation that the people of Australia think that we are. We are not. Political organisations are the basis of Parliament because you can't get here without them. And so political organisations need the opportunity to not be reliant on donations, where you can only afford to employ someone because they're out of the goodness of their heart working for you. We need executive-style change in this space, and to me, the only way that we can do that is through electoral reform and through public funding. Now, I know there's been discussion about electoral reform in this space, but the terms of reference of the Ministerial Expert Panel probably don't go into the scope of that. But when you have that debate, members, you must, when you're meeting with the Minister and his department, you must raise this issue of public funding. It may not be popular to the public, but in the first instance, they don't understand that we all exist on political donations, and there can never be any change that is required, and we all recognise it, unless there is public funding that allows political organisations to lead in this space. Because Australia and the people of Australia want us to lead in this space. Political organisations need to see this as an opportunity of leadership, not to defend what it is that you've done or what is going on. Be brave, be bold, and create some leadership. The response that I received from people after that speech that I gave in November was overwhelmingly positive. People want to see that change. In the last 12 months, Grace Tame, a former survivor of child abuse, Australian of the Year. Brittany Higgins, a former federal staffer. Emma Hussar, a former member of the House of Representatives. Julia Banks, a former member of the House of Representatives. Rochelle Miller, a former Chief of Staff. Catherine Marriott, Western Australian Rural Woman of the Year. These are all powerful, capable women who are calling on us to make change, and we need to respond. We have come together over this last period of time for me, since November last year, and spoken with each other and many people about the treatment of women involved in politics. And the answer of those conversations is always the same. Women will walk away, you will have less diversity, and you will have less capacity for the Parliament to respond, because the Parliament is driven by the political organisations who put people here. Parliaments have often responded to calls for social change. We have done it ourselves in this House. We've seen the passing of the Voluntary Assisted Dying Bill, same-sex marriage, the rights for women to vote, the rights for Aboriginal people to vote. This is also a social wave that is coming your way, and you need to get in front of it. I ask you to be champions of change in this space for the betterment of the people of Western Australia. I know that as members of this House, you will take that responsibility seriously, and you will all do fulfil your role and do your bit to be champions of change in that space. That is not easy. Change is resisted often, but it is our job to do it. And I look forward to seeing all of you members take up that challenge and use the vehicle that you have, which is this Parliament, to be that champion of change. Thank you, members, and I wish you all exceptionally well in your futures, And to the new members coming in, I wish them the very best, and I hope that they use this House as champions of change. Thank you.